How's it going, ladies and Bruce's? I'm Bobby Sixkilla and welcome back to Sekimeiya. I left you on a cliffhanger at the end of the last episode, like the cruel man that I am. But we opened the toilet door to the men's toilet, which was locked from the inside. Presumably, a person was hiding there from us who was making all that noise. So Katai went and got the key and has opened the door. We're also smelling the same smell that we got when we found Naomi's corpse. So we can only imagine what is in this room. Let's continue, shall we? Once we saw what awaited inside, all of us stood, shocked, stock still, failing to comprehend what we were looking at. What the fuck? This is impossible. We all must have experienced a strong feeling of deja vu. On the floor of the men's bathroom lay Naomi's unmoving body. Oh, it's the same corpse. Instinctively, Elena ushered Isla aside, but she'd already seen what was in the room. What the hell would anyone lock her body in here? Lock her body in? Didn't we just look at it a second ago? She was right, we'd entered the room where she died, and we'd seen her. Or had we? Had we perhaps only seen the curtain that should have been over her? Everyone else was likely thinking the same, but Sai instructed us not to rush. Hold on. We can see the room from here. There's no point in running to it. There's no security camera in the bathroom. We need to make sure we don't miss anything right now. It felt like a pointless attempt, but I crouched to check Naomi's pulse, like Sai had done the first time. I felt nothing. What are you doing? Do you think she might have revived? No, but this is strange. There should be a bit of blood oozing from her, shouldn't there? But there's none, and the floor is completely clean. What? You're right, there's no blood at all. At least that confirms that the lock wasn't set from the inside. Someone locked her in with the key. There's nothing else here. We need to check the other body. We all ran to room B4 except for Edna and Isla, who stayed guarding the bathrooms and inside of the stairs. In hallway B, in front of the event room, Naomi had died. We left her body under a curtain to preserve her dignity. Sai forcibly opened the door. In very quick succession, another impossibility immediately appeared before us. The cloth's sides had been tainted by blood, which was all around it. In the middle of the huge red circle was a bulge the size of a human. It can't be. She's still here. We couldn't form a response. Her body was still beneath the curtain. It appears Atsuki was correct then. Something very out of the ordinary is going on. Sai ran out of breath at the end of a sentence. Not even he could easily fathom it. He approached the body and gently removed the curtain from it. The result was what we'd expected, yet it still seemed impossible. Naomi's dead body hadn't moved in the slightest. What the hell is this? Katai, let's get this out of the way. Does Naomi have a fucking twin? Not that I know of. I wasn't very close to her. A twin would explain this. Look here. Her suit had a product label by its neck containing 4 numbers. 6322. Was it the same in the bathroom? Yes. I saw it when I felt for her purse. Katai, is that just a model number or something? It isn't. Those are individual product run numbers. Then, this is the exact same suit. So, there's no doubt that Atsuki was telling the truth. The culprit must have used the Sekimeiya's powers to do this. Katai could no longer deny it. The 2 identical bodies had appeared before him. The Sekimeiya was still in the cabinet, so they must have returned it there. Alright, according to you guys, the Sekimeiya made Atsuki time travel. How would travelling through time lead to this? We don't know how it works. There might be more to it than it first seemed, but just consider this. What would happen if you tried to make a dead body time travel? Normally you'd think that nothing would happen, but what if the dead body actually travelled through time? Yeah, the culprit might have made Naomi's body travel through time by touching it with the Sekimeiya. If they knew Naomi would appear in the bathroom, they could have locked it preemptively. If not, maybe they just moved the identical body inside and locked it. It must have been related to the noise we heard. An identical body. We should inspect it more thoroughly. We don't know what happened, but the other Naomi might hold something of importance. We didn't have much else we could do to figure anything out, so we went back to the bathroom. The other Naomi hadn't moved. Let me check. I keep a good look at Sai to make sure that he couldn't do anything in secret. All he did was check every pocket, and they were all empty. Huh. She doesn't have any keys. Not even the keys the other body had. So that theory was probably wrong. If by travelling the culprit created an identical body in the past, it would have had the same keys. Yes, if that's how it worked, I'd think so. Couldn't the culprit have just taken them? But why? They didn't take them from the original body. There are 2 more things that don't hold up. If Naomi's dead body travelled to the past, her clothes would have been stained with blood. just like they were at the time that they travelled. And second, you'll still be vanished when I travelled, right? If the same thing happened to Naomi, the first body should have disappeared. Technically, with how little we knew, my points could have still been refuted. What if the replica of the body only takes into consideration the state of the body in the past? And with the way I'd travelled, I couldn't be sure that if my then present body had teleported to the past, or if the body that I had appeared in had been identical to how it had been at the point I'd appeared. If Naomi had gone back to the past far enough, to a point before her death, her clothes might have been clean, even though she was alive at that point. If the body that had time travelled had been dead, she probably would have appeared dead in the past, otherwise she would have come back to life. It also implied that the body that had been with us in the tower since before we found the first one, and had only just been shown to us. Given how we were unable to find the culprit, it couldn't be ruled out. Is there another way to make this work? I've thought of a few things involving time travel, but now we have no other choice. There's nothing else that could begin to explain this, so my prior experience must be in some way related to the truth of what happened. This body is dead, but there's no blood around it. Could it be that she appeared dead from the future, and that's why no blood is anywhere? That her body is as it is when she was alive, yet her true state is from after her death? The only thing I can think of slightly contradicts my own experience, but it'd sound more believable if not from my own experience. It would only require the past to be changeable. I didn't personally change anything when I travelled back in time, but that's not reason to think that it's impossible. What if Naomi travelled back in time when she was alive? Two of them would have existed in the past, then all the culprit would have to do would have been to kill both of them. This sounds like a problem because fundamentally, this should never be possible. It'd be a paradox. By killing the Naomi who travelled to the past, you'd be making it impossible for the new one to exist. But I don't know if these kinds of paradoxes exist. What if Naomi's actions upon travelling make it impossible for her initial self to travel? Two of them would permanently exist at the same time, and us finding two dead bodies would work. Yeah, but then you would exist twice at the same time. However, if this isn't a possible occurrence in our universe, I can't think of anything else. The mere fact that travelling makes your body instantly disappear means that without paradoxes, two of the same person couldn't exist at once as corpses. To circumvent the paradox, I can think that perhaps a dead body can travel to the past and create a new dead body. This still hits the barrier of the original body should have disappeared as soon as it travelled, but it's not as absolute. Maybe the first dead body will travel back to the future, and that's why it's still there. And on top of all this, there has to be a motive for all this to be happening, for a culprit to create this mess, to kill the same person twice, and for something like time travel powers to be publicly exposed in this place. Is Shin actually behind it? Nobody had said anything in a while. We were all dumbfounded, staring at the impossible image. That's interesting. She had a bump on the back of her head. It's similar to the other body, but blood's not coming out of this one. Is that so? Then this body isn't the same as when she was alive, despite the lack of blood. Let's go test it. Let's try to understand how the Sekimeiya works. Hey, stop! The Psy kept running toward the event room, housing what we believed to be the centre of every mystery. None of us wanted to stop him. Instead, we ran behind him, forcing Katai to follow us. We entered the room at the same time and saw the Sekimeiya still in the cabinet. It's good that we didn't lock this. Only the culprit has the key, so it only hurt us. Psy, he'll get all of us in trouble. What might get us in trouble is the murderer that's somewhere in this place. If something happens to the Sekimeiya, it'll be their fault. He proceeds to scroll open the glass and then took the Sekimeiya out. We stared at him as he held it in his hands. He kept a nonchalant face, and there was no reaction. Nothing? Maybe I just cloned myself in the past. Who's to know? I'm clearly still here though. Without asking, he dropped it between my hands. It was really cold and it didn't see me anywhere. Its colour wasn't changing either. I don't understand it. Maybe the Sekimeiya didn't do anything and something else is the actual cause of this phenomenon. But it changed colours, right? Both when Atsuki touched it and when we put it here. Let's keep it outside. We'll see if it happens again. I won't allow that. I couldn't stop you from getting it out, but you'd only prove that the Sekimeiya isn't at all related to what's going on. Put it back in. Mind if I go poke Naomi's body with it first? Something could happen. You're losing your mind. That'd be beyond disgraceful. Katai took the Sekimeiya from my hands and put it in his cabinet. Spoil sport. Oh, I might have realised something. What is it? It's not directly related to the Sekimeiya, but I just remembered something when you mentioned touching Naomi's body. They all waited for me to continue and reveal something important, but I wasn't sure if I was right. Instead, I took off toward the room with the original body of Naomi. I was followed in. Inside, I kneeled beside the body and looked around it. What are you doing? Good, it's still here. I showed them the result of my successful search, the key ring we'd found in one of Naomi's pockets. What about this? Do you know what they're for? Of course, this big one. Yes, I think it might be the key to the attic. Are you serious? I am. We also saw the keyhole upstairs and it needed a big key like this one. The hole is also found inside the elevator, but you can't draw the shape of the key from it, so I understand why you didn't notice it. What do you say, Katai? Honestly, I can't tell. He could be right, but I'm not sure why Naomi would have it. So we could have access to the attic, where the culprit might have been hiding all this time. Not only that, if I'm right, we've had access to it for a while. We could have entered it during our last search. But I can't just think that we would have easily found the culprit. First, it would mean that the culprit has another key. Second, that they hid there knowing that we had access to it. Third, that they didn't take this key from Naomi. And yet the one for the cabinet was taken. So maybe they don't care about us going to the attic. This doesn't matter. Let's go and see if it's the right one. I removed the key from the set, and I was about to exit the room. That was until Shiroya made us aware of something. Is Akira not here? We looked around in bewilderment. She was right. Akira wasn't with us. Did he even come here? We looked around hallway B, but it appeared empty. In front of us was the event room, which we could also see was empty through the door. Where the hell did he go? Did he go off on his own? No way someone attacked him, right? It's hard to believe we wouldn't have heard anything, and restraining Akira must require some effort. This floor should have been empty too. We kept talking as we looked through the other hallway. Edina and Isla were still next to the stairs alone. Did we try to go to the attic before we looked for him thoroughly? It's just great that someone disappeared as soon as we found our way in. But he might be in danger. If he is in danger, he will be even if we search for him. If he walked away by himself, he wouldn't allow us to find him so easily, and if the culprit took him, we've already experienced being unable to find them many times. This is the first time the situation arises, and we have access to the attic. We should go there first. Afterward, we'll move down if we haven't found him. No, Akira must still be here. Let's look for him. Fine. He would have a very good reason if he got separated from us on purpose. You really think he did? Isn't he incredibly suspicious? He's been cooperative, but he's felt out of place from the beginning. He showed no interest in anything going on here, but he's got trapped because he'd arrived so early. Aren't you in the same position? No, but you are. I came here out of curiosity. Regardless, hallway B was empty when we entered Naomi's room. If the culprit took him by surprise, they would have had to come from behind not to be seen. Unless you want to say that maybe they materialized right behind Akira. It's very dubious that this happened. We looked through this entire floor a while ago. But the Sekimeiya is still here. What other reason could he have to vanish like that? I don't know. To make us waste time? Isn't that what the culprit's been doing from the beginning? We explained what had happened to Edina and Isla while Sai called the elevator. It was still on our floor, so it probably hadn't been used. If it had though, we would have heard it. Surely Edina and Isla would have seen them seen Akira if he left the floor. That's why she's guarding the stairs. So we couldn't be sure. Edina and Isla would have just had to miss the button lighting up for a couple of seconds. He suddenly disappeared. Nobody could have gone up. Lend me the key, Atsuki. I want to see if it fits. Here. I gave him the big brown key I detached from the keyring. Sai took it and attempted to insert it in the keyhole inside the elevator. You were correct, this is the one. As he turned it, the 7th button lit up, indicating it had become available. Seriously? That's very strange. I'm not sure you understand how restricted that place is. I'm not certain we should even go. Oh, we will go. At first, we'll see if we can find Akira here. Also, the culprit must have another key to the attic, given that they left this one on Naomi. When Sai took the key out, the light surrounding the button turned off. Then he handed it back to me. As I put it in my pocket, he started closing the elevator door very slowly and let go of it before it had even fully closed. By doing so, he created a small gap between the door and the elevator. Good, this works. If we can keep it open like this without the need of blocking it with an object, later, if we do a thorough search, we'll be able to do this so nobody can call it. Since Akira can only be here, let's quickly see if we can find him. Then our priority is looking for something important in the attic. He closed the elevator again. We'd gotten used to the crystal floor searches, so it didn't feel like an imposing task anymore. Edina and Isla remained where they'd been, while the rest of us chose individual rooms to look through, including the bathrooms and mechanical room. Every single one of them was empty, so we reunited by the stairs. Either Akira managed to disappear or the culprit managed to make him disappear. The Sekimeiya didn't work for us earlier, so this is getting very confusing. I'm not sure what Akira has to do with this, but for now, let's go up. All of us can't be in the elevator at the same time. Let's walk up and enter through the main door. It'd be easier to be together. I agree. Without wasting time, we moved through the floors to get to the 6th. It was weird to see that Akira wasn't walking with us. Naomi's second appearance eclipsed the strangeness of his disappearance, but it was also something that I couldn't even begin to understand. The Sekimeiya didn't work for us earlier, so this is getting very confusing. Sai had implied that the Sekimeiya must have caused Akira's disappearance, but there was one important discrepancy. It had been shut behind the glass. That meant that it couldn't only work the way we thought. Oh, I didn't see this door. It's my very first time looking at it too. It looks sturdy. No way we'd be opening without the key. They all looked at me. I took the key out of my pocket and inserted it in the keyhole. I'd been half expecting something to go wrong, but I was able to smoothly turn it and unlock the door to the mysterious attic. Sai quickly dragged the door open. There was a narrow staircase leading upward that obliged us to form a line. It's pretty dark. Do we need to go? These stairs are like this because there's no room directly above us. They had to link this door to the closest room. It wasn't an easy task, and there wasn't much space to make a wider staircase. We saw the attic earlier through the cameras. It's a very tidy floor in the layout of a normal household. Since not many people can access it, they didn't bother making it a more pleasant entry. But won't we get in trouble for going in? We might. I will advise you to not keep going. It's a very restricted area, and I doubt Ashiya will understand that our circumstances deemed it necessary. Sai, who was in front, kept walking up. The rest of us followed him, and shortly saw the stairs that didn't continue for very long. We easily reached the top and found another door at our left. The space above wasn't big enough for us all to go, so Edina and Isla could barely see it. Sai grabbed the old-looking handle and realised that the door was slightly open. Then he pushed it to open the last barrier that kept us from seeing what we were up against. A rusty sound creaked out as the door slowly opened. Sai had put unusual strength into it, as it kept getting stuck on the floor. Once he'd won his battle, I was able to see what was past it. It looked like there's another black suitcase. It looked like an old living room. Not at all Japanese styled. A sofa with a suitcase on it quickly came into view, along with a few lamps hanging from the ceiling. I could see 2 more doors in the corner of the room. As I kept scoping it thoroughly, I questioned why Sai hadn't yet moved. Wait, look at the floor. I took it as if he'd been talking to me because I was the one with the best view inside. As soon as he pointed it out, I understood what he'd been looking at. There was someone here. What? Yeah, there are footprints on the floor. Someone must have been here. The entire floor was covered by a huge blue carpet, and any step someone took in it would remain visible thanks to its thickness. Over time, they'd become harder and harder to spot until they disappear altogether. That meant someone had stepped here recently. Someone must have been here, yes. This is why we couldn't find the culprit. The second Naomi didn't have a keyring, so it's very possible they still had access to this place. This isn't exactly what I meant though. Huh? Don't you see it? The footprints don't make sense. Nobody could have entered through this door. It took me a while to see why he'd said that, since there were footprints right next to the door. The key to that statement was the origin of them. Wait, you're right. How did this happen? Against the wall before us was a red sofa. In front of it, the footprints began and walked up to the door Sai had opened. From there, they headed toward another door. I'm not sure what to gather from this, but once we entered, the footprints will fade away and merge with ours. So let's not disrupt the rightmost part of the room yet. Once Sai entered, I was free to do so as well, and the people behind me all slowly made their way into what seemed to be the living room. Next to the sofa was a modest table, and in front of it, a shelf supporting an old but large CRT television. What the hell is this doing here? He was talking about the suitcase. It looked like the one taken from Hallway C minutes prior, and it couldn't have somehow moved to the attic. Instead of us, since we hadn't heard the elevator. That meant it was an entirely different suitcase. Why are there so many black suitcases around it? It's empty too, and it looks like the one downstairs. It's exactly the same suitcase. The same one literally, or do you mean the same model? Probably the same model, but honestly, I can't be sure. Naomi's body appeared twice, so this could be the exact same suitcase depending on what happened. Huh, look. It also has faint traces of smoke. Do they not belong to the people who work here, Katai? There's no way 2 big suitcases like these were snuck into the tower, right? 3 in fact. One more was being carried by the person holding the stolen gemstones. And no, I don't recognise it at all. More importantly, what is it doing here? I looked around me. Nowhere did I see any security cameras, and it hit me how I hadn't seen the living room through the monitors. I was sure that one of us would have noticed the suitcase otherwise, and perhaps even the person who'd been hiding. Honestly, I have no idea. I'm not sure why they bring this here. No matter what its contents were, if they wanted to leave it behind, they could have done so downstairs, which is what we thought they did. Right, what's the point of leaving one of the crystal on the crystal floor and another one here? Whatever it is, it's less strange than the footprints we've walked over. Atsuki and Shiroya realized it. The footprints started right in front of the suitcase, moved toward the staircase, and then to that door over there. What's past it? That door leads to the hallway. From it you can access the elevator and the bedrooms. The other doors you see lead to the kitchen, which is also connected to the hallway. But I see what you mean. If no more footprints exist, they couldn't begin by the sofa. Well, no, they could, if someone spent a few hours on the sofa. The next time they walked around, their previous footprints would have faded away, so it would look as if the starting point had been the sofa itself. They could have also come from the kitchen, but they must have jumped onto the sofa to not leave footprints, which sounds bizarre. Sai, careful not to step on the pre-existing footprints, opened the door to the kitchen. The floor here is different, so we won't be able to know if anyone came from the kitchen. Now, do we check everyone's shoes? What? Why do you think I preserved a few of these, naturally, to check if any of us had been here already? Naomi's killer would have had the same way in as with the same key we used, or the one that the other Naomi might have had. These are barely recognizable though. We might not be able to compare them well. That's fine. The size itself should be enough. Strangely, nobody should have been able to enter this place through the stairs we just came from, because no footprints start there. So I open the remaining door. Look, this hallway has a wooden floor too, and I can see the elevator right there. Using it, anyone could have come up and here if they'd had the key. That sounded right. Our own footprints were still very much visible, telling us that they wouldn't fade too fast. The door had gotten stuck into the floor when Sai tried to open it, and the markings from that were still on the carpet. However, we had no way to tell if it had been opened earlier. There was no way to jump on the sofa from the staircase, so accepting Sai's claim was reasonable. I looked up to see if I could notice a ceiling opening to drop from, but I didn't spot anything. Could they have just walked backwards from the hallway to the sofa? Like, couldn't they have come up the elevator, walked backwards? I don't know how you'd be able to tell on a carpet like that which way the shoes are facing, but let's assume that they can. Walk backwards from the hallway door to the stairs to floor 6 door, and then backwards to the sofa, sit down. That's all it would take. Before I agreed with him though, I recalled how we could have been up against a sly culprit who was trying to mislead and bait us to avoid being found. As the disappeared Akira had said, it felt as if they'd been taunting us at times. So if their intention was to play with our reasoning again, they could have been able to make us think the main door hadn't been used, and that the elevator must have been the only method of entering. The key behind that was the state the footprints were in. They'd clearly been there for a while, so it wasn't simple to determine the way they were facing. See? Even though we'd all interpreted the sofa to be the starting point, that wasn't definitely the case. The trick is the culprit could have consciously walked from the door to the sofa. From there, making it to the kitchen without stepping on the floor again seemed easy, and they could have gone around the room, through the hallway, to exit through the main door. It sounded over the top and it implied that they left a suitcase there so that we would find it. But we still had to ask ourselves an important question. Why had the culprit left the key to the attic in Naomi's pocket when they had removed the key for the Sekimeiya cabinet? If they had known that we were going to look at the room, they might have prepared something like that. However, I couldn't think of a goal, as the fact that they hadn't come from the main door didn't seem to contradict anything yet. Yet's the key word though, right? The more I stared at the footprints, the more I doubted whether they could have been facing the way I was thinking. I wasn't sure anymore, but I was confident that only one pair of shoes had left them. If they could have been backwards though, there was more arrangements. Perhaps they'd entered from the staircase, then gone to the hallway to use the elevator down, and quickly returned from the staircase to walk to the sofa. Exactly. Well, are you going to show me your shoes, or will you make me compare your footprints? Look, mine are a little bigger, see? It's very simple. Fine, here. I know you'll still suspect me, but you must admit that mine are also considerably bigger. Who'd you steal those from? I'm used to not ruling... I'm not used to ruling you out so quickly, that's all. Unfortunately, we can't really look at Akira's for the moment, but I'm sure they'd be bigger too. He's a big guy. He's the biggest guy here. Anyway, Atsuki, you're next on the suspicious list. And I just let you know about the attic key. Just show me your shoes. I'm pretty lost when it comes to intentions of the culprit anyway. He looked at them, and once again, there was no match. Shiroya? She left a footprint, and Sai looked at it for a few seconds with a conspicuous frown on his face. Yours are awful close, but I can't say for sure if they're the same. The size is at least very similar. So what? Are you gonna move me above Atsuki on your list? This might give you enough points for that, but I'll admit, I was only hoping for Katai's shoes to match. That would have meant a lot more than yours coinciding on the size. Anyway, editor, mind playing along too? You can see mine is slightly bigger too. You're right. Let's see if we can find something else then. Are you not going to look at mine? Surely you have tiny feet. Oh sure, Isla. Do you understand what will happen if your shoes match? Don't worry, they're not even close. That's what I thought. So I walked to the television and tried to power it on. Nothing happened. I guess this is broken, seeing as it's plugged in. Anyway, let's look around this place. We started with the kitchen. It had an empty refrigerator, an oven, and some compartments to store food that no longer contained anything but dust. Next, we all stepped over to the hallway. The floor was a little creaky, and the walls were beige. Everything gave away that the floor was old, but it was still well preserved. This room used to serve as a storeroom, but it's empty now, and it seems the ceiling lights stopped working. Pressing the switch isn't doing anything. We ignored the elevator and began to look through the other rooms. According to Katai, the two doors furthest back led to the bedrooms. I thought he never came up here. How does he know that? There's a second floor. Inside the spacious bedroom, Isla noticed a ladder that led to the room above us. However, we should have been on the highest floor. Oh, not quite. Back then, when this was a residence, it's true that the house was composed of 2 floors. The second one wasn't fully preserved when this building was expanded, but as you noticed, remnants are still present in these bedrooms. Oh, what's up there then? Another bedroom like this one. These were used as double rooms back in the day, so Ashiya instructed us to not to demolish the higher ones. I felt the need to sit on the bed since I was pretty tired from not having slept all night. It wasn't very comfortable due to how long it had been unused for, but the sheets made it look like it was still maintained daily. I stood up as soon as I noticed the security camera recording me. I definitely recalled having seen the bedroom through the monitors. Shiroya, Isla and I went to the second level of the bedroom. As Katai had said, it looked very similar, and there were only 2 beds and a closet. I opened the closet, given that we were still looking for Akira, but it only contained a few articles of clothing. We went back down. Another door was in front of the bedroom. It led to a mirrored version of the bedroom I'd seen, and also had a ladder. Okay. Above, nothing was different. That meant that there were effectively 4 bedrooms on the floor. The final area was the bathroom. It had a shower, a shelf, and a modest carpet on the floor. It was bigger and fancier than the ones below, but the door didn't have a locking mechanism. The entire floor had a simple layout. According to Katai, the household used to be quite bigger in the past, but what remained wasn't that much. At the same time, the hallway wasn't as long as the ones downstairs, meaning that the attic didn't make use of the whole space the large building provided, probably because it had been greatly expanded at one point. We'd looked through every room while someone had always remained in the hallway, so we determined that we were alone. Once we'd finished, Sai called us from the elevator. There were light switches all around, but every light was turned on. Is that normal? Yes. It doesn't mean anyone turned them on separately. The lights turn off automatically at night, and every morning we manually turn them all on, at once, including the attics. That's why the office floors are lit up as well. That sounds like a huge waste. After nodding, Katai stayed in the hallway's bend so that nobody could enter without being seen. We realised Sai had called the elevator as soon as we saw the button lighting up. Alright, so we haven't found anyone. That's fair. As we said earlier, we now need to make sure to thoroughly inspect every floor, so we'll leave the elevator here and disable it by keeping the door open. Just like he'd done downstairs, he held it with his hands so that it wouldn't close. Once he let go of it, the door didn't have the force to close itself and remained stationary. If we make it all the way down without finding anyone, we'll have to consider some pretty outlandish things. Until then, we have to expect to at least find Akira. We entered the living room. Sai and Katai went through the kitchen, as it was the last place anyone could have hoped to sneak in through. What does it look like to you guys? I stopped them without giving them context. They weren't sure what I was referring to, so I made it clearer. The footprints, I mean. They can look like an impossibility, but there's a very easy explanation for them, right? Teleportation? Yes, earlier I did consider the culprit having teleported to the attic. If they appeared next to the sofa, that'd be the natural beginning of their footprints. Here's something else. These footprints probably belong to a woman. What's your shoe size, Shiroya? Oh, 6.5. And the only other person we know who would have a similar shoe size is Naomi. Furthermore, we found 2 Naomis, and on the sofa, where she should have teleported to, there's a suitcase that we've also seen before. See? This is what I told you guys earlier. Naomi had the suitcase from the beginning. Once she teleported or time traveled to this living room, the suitcase was replicated and she must have left it here. Or are you just gung-ho about time travel now? You were ridiculing Atsuki for it earlier. Well, it's become clearer that something strange is going on. These footprints are even further proof. If this is what happened, Naomi must have travelled here while she was holding the suitcase. So, before we found it on the crystal floor, that would mean that two Naomis have existed since long ago. And that not only did we miss both of them, but they were both also killed. And let me tell you, there are some pesky contradictions down that line of thought. First, during the time Naomi could have been holding the suitcase, the Sekimeiya was in the cabinet. It wasn't locked inside, but we touched it and nothing happened to us. If that's how she time travelled up here, it again begs the question, why did it work for her? Honestly, I assumed that being outside the cabinet, without its cold temperature, is what made the Sekimeiya transport Atsuki to the past. However, the fact that we found the Sekimeiya still in the cabinet minutes before seeing the suitcase might imply that that was wrong. I'm not wrong, right? If Naomi touched it while it was out of the cabinet, we would have found it outside. The next contradiction is what we were talked about earlier. Naomi would have disappeared upon travelling, so we couldn't have found her corpse and the suitcase twice. I get what you're saying regarding the Sekimeiya, but after travelling back, she would have gone downstairs to pick it up from the floor. She would have known where she travelled from, so she could have returned to the cabinet. Incorrect, I think. Remember what Katai said after we got the Sekimeiya in the cabinet. What did I say? That you had restored the elevator. According to you, the alarm disabled it. Oh right, I gave it power again after I stopped trying to understand what had caused the power outage. I see, so Naomi couldn't have used the elevator before we saw the Sekimeiya in the cabinet. And right after that, we saw the suitcase in hallway C, which probably means that Naomi would have already travelled. What? She could have just left through the staircase. No, I don't think so. It's likely that the first time we heard the elevator moving down, Naomi had used it from here. There's still no other explanation for that, and there's something else that makes me think that she couldn't have exited through the door. That's the last contradiction I can point out. When Naomi travelled with the suitcase, it's very safe to assume that she also had her keys. She had them before the smoke appeared, and when we found her first corpse, her cabinet key had been removed, but that probably only happened after she'd been killed. Now recall the footprints we found here. They begin next to the sofa, went to the staircase, and then toward the hallway door. Oh, so if Naomi's first movements after appearing would have been to try to exit through the staircase. Exactly. And despite that, she went back to the hallway. A reasonable explanation is that she didn't have the key to get out. Then why would she go to the door? To try to open it. Perhaps she thought she still had her keys, but when she went to the stairs and was about to take them out, she realised she didn't have them. Her only way out was through the elevator, so it moved back up and went to the hallway. Eventually, she must have used it when its power was restored. Since the footprints were all similar, there's only one other explanation that makes sense to me. She had the keys and exited the room, then, either before or after that, she entered the attic again and went straight to the hallway. But the footprints were all in similar condition, so there must not have been a long time between them. I'm not sure why she'd enter again, only to use the elevator and go down. It's possible she wanted to avoid being noticed, but the elevator noise makes that pointless. She thought she'd have her keys then. Maybe she didn't know that much about the Sekimeiya even though she'd used it so early. I think that makes the most sense. She would have been the second Naomi that we found. I still don't understand how we missed her, if she was the one who took the elevator down, or who killed her, but the truth is that we didn't find any keys on her body. And the culprit didn't remove them first time, so they would have also left them if the second Naomi had them. It was what the footprints indicated, that she had thought that she had the keys she didn't have. Had it been an effect of the time travel itself? Or had she lost them beforehand? Let's head back down for now. When we get to the crystal floor, we'll know if the footprints could have belonged to her. If not, Shidoya's gonna have to move up a few spots on the naughty list. Alright, well, we're gonna wrap this one up here because we're out of time for today. That's very interesting. So we have two Naomis. I don't understand how that makes sense. Well, I mean, that's not time travel, right? Because it didn't do that for us, so... Maybe there's a... I'm sure we've talked about the fact that there's two stones, potentially. Maybe one of them just duplicates things? I don't know. I guess we'll find out eventually. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks again out for me, and I'll see you in the next one.